potential consequences. You see, you may be put in a situation where God is calling you, leading you to do something, to go to another country, maybe to go on mission. And it may not be a democracy like the one that we experience today, where we have a lot of freedom. It may be a place to which, if it becomes known that you are a follower of Christ, that your very life and the life of your family members will be put into danger. So what do? Do you obey, or are you persuaded by the potential consequences? For Paul, the Holy Spirit had already directed him. The Holy Spirit had already told him. He was constrained by the Spirit to go to Jerusalem. He had even acknowledged that he had no idea that if he obeyed what the Spirit was calling him to do, he had no idea what would happen to him, but he was convinced that he should go. It was far more important to him that he do what God told him to do than for his own safety, his own security, and his own comfort. A couple of weeks ago, I stood right here and I told you the story of Jim Elliot, Nate Saint, and 3 others who back in the 1950s attempted to take the gospel into a remote area in Ecuador to the Aqua Indians. We talked to you about that. We talked about how remote this tribe was in those days, how vicious, how brutally murderous the reputation was, and they made direct contact with them, flew in actually onto a remote beach along a river, and had the first outside contact with this tribe, these missionaries, these 5 men. 2 or 3 of these local Indians came out to meet them, and at first it looked like that they were going to have a great opportunity to get to know them, to spend time with them, to learn their language, to share the gospel with them. But before that first encounter finished, all those men were pierced by spears when others from the village descended upon them and killed them right there on the beach. Now, to me, the most startling part of that story isn't the tragic death of these men who felt called to go and to share the gospel, to give up their own safety and security to do so. The most startling part is Jim Elliot's wife, who a few years after this episode had happened, she had been widowed at the hands of these Indians. She decides, because God had called not just her husband, but He had called her, He had called her whole family. She decides that she would go visit that very same tribe. And not only does she not only visit them, she takes her young daughter, still in elementary age or younger, with her. And they go and live with that tribe. The very tribe that killed her husband. She knew the consequences of going there. She knew what could have happened to her and what could have happened to her daughter. And yet she went anyway. Why? Because she felt God leading her to go, and she was more concerned about obeying God than the potential consequences of disobeying. Here's how you pursue God's will. It's by